there were about 500 players left. And the tournament started with about 500 players, and in this situation, there were about 30 players left, I would say. There's a bit less. This is like, I think there's 3 tables left at this point. So the last hand we saw was this, where I tried to steal the blinds, and the big blind went all in. So I'm going to try to play through the rest of the tournament. I think I have to go fairly quickly because I only have 40 minutes, but I'll try to do it. And ask me if there's any questions. Stop me if I'm going too fast. Okay. So the very next hand, I get King Jack offsuit, and it's folded to me on the button, and I just go all in for 20 big blinds. So 20 big blinds is higher than 15, right? I said if you have 15 or less, go all in. If you have 20, you can just call and not go all in. But the reason I went all in instead of just raising is because I feel like if I just raised, the 2 blinds might try to go all in with like something like ace-2 offsuit, and it would just kind of suck for me because if my hand is losing to ace-2 offsuit, whereas if I went all in, they would probably fold their ace-2 offsuit. So I just went all in to get them to fold ace-2 offsuit, ace-3 offsuit, and stuff like that. If I had ace-jack instead of king-jack, I would definitely not be going all in. I would definitely be raising small and hoping that they're going to re-raise with something like ace-2 suited, and then I can call and be way ahead. But since I don't have an ace, I only have king-jack high. I just went all in. So yeah, so hopefully I illustrate some of the principles I talked about in class by replaying this tournament. I'm not, trying to like show off or like it's just like give entertainment. I'm trying to like teach. So please ask me if something's not clear. So yes, don't treat this as entertainment. This should be okay. So under the gun limps here, and usually, so notice under the gun only had like 5 big blinds. So in this situation, I usually think when a player limps, he probably has a good hand. I think if he didn't have a good hand, he'd probably just go all in to try to steal. So I'm definitely folding ace-3 off. So the small blind calls, the big blind checks, and the small blind gets it in here with 10-5 suited, which I think is really bad. I think I would have just folded. I mean, it's not many bets, but the thing is, I think under the gun just has a good hand so frequently. Okay, the next hand, I have Jack 10 suited. I fold here. I think that's pretty normal. It's a good hand, but it's not a good hand when it comes to going all in. Like when this guy sub-line goes all in, hijack -1 goes all in, I expect him to definitely have me beat almost all the time. Like I guess you could have pocket deuces, but he's not gonna have like, I guess you could have 10-9 suited, but in general, he's just more likely to have something like ace-jack, king-10 that beats me. So
was that the red flag, limping with pair of kings?
In general, I don't think so. So this hand, in general, I don't think so. I mean, he did luck out here, but for every time he lucks out here, there's going to be another time where he doesn't win, or like a king comes and he doesn't get all the money, or there's just so many bad things that can happen when you win. Like you give the big blind a chance to win the hand with 5-6 or something, or like someone else has a good hand and they don't get it all in pre-flop, and then they hit a bad flop and they fold, they escape. And I mean, if the small blind is going to play like this and get it all in this situation, maybe calling is okay, but yeah. Okay, so this hand's got, oops. Okay, so this hand, nothing much going on. I just fold and touch my nut raises and steals the blind successfully. Okay, so yeah, we'll see more of him playing later. So this guy wins the blinds, not much. Okay, so here I fold, and I think in the recommended hands I told you this was barely a fold. I think I recommended that you play. Maybe this was a raise. I don't remember. This is very, very borderline. I chose to fold here because I felt like players could. There were a lot of short stacks who would go all in, and I wouldn't be able to escape. Like say like this P Mahoney guy. If I raise and he goes all in, I basically like have to call, and my hand isn't doing that well. So I think this hand could go either way. I think raising is definitely fine. I chose to fold. And yeah, so this hand is pretty standard. Neither player is doing anything wrong. So here, if you calculate, I won't have good enough odds to call. It's somewhat close, but it's not really that close. Yeah, I would probably call with king-jack suited. I would call with king-jack offsuit. I would probably call with queen-jack suited, queen-10 suited. But like I wouldn't even call with jack-9 suited.
Wait, what do you expect the other guy to have?
I expect the other guy to have, when he shows this, I expect him to have maybe like the top like 20% of hands, something like that. Yeah, I would expect him to be doing this with Jack 9 suited, I think is one of the worst hands he shoves. I guess he could shove like 8-7 suited, but I don't think he's shoving like 8-7 offsuit or Jack 9 offsuit.
Oh.
Okay, the next hand, under the gun raises, I'm obviously folding a big case. He gets the blinds, not the check. Not very interesting. Okay. So here under the gun went all in for 4 big blinds. So I think he should be doing this fairly frequently. Because in this spot, if he doesn't go all in, right, next hand he has to pay the big blind. And that's going to be a quarter of the stack. And he's basically going to have to call with any 2 cards in the next hand. Pretty much. I mean, if he gets dealt like 3-2 offsuit, maybe he can get away. But in general, it's just a lose-lose situation for him. Like, the next hand, if he doesn't get dealt a good hand, he's basically screwed. He either has to call and have a bad hand for his remaining chips, or fold and be down to even fewer chips. So I expect him to be very weak here. Everyone still folds even though. So yeah, so this hand is pretty normal. I think so this guy mad 66 could have just went all in. I mean, it's basically very similar, but he could have just went all in because the effective stack size for him was only like 8 big blinds, right? Because everyone behind him, the person who has the most chips, has like 8.5 big blinds. So the effective stack size was only 8.5 big blinds here. He chose to raise king 2 suited, which is okay. It's not my, I think it's a bit loose, but it's fine. So this hand is pretty standard. King queen offsuit, I think, is definitely a call. Pocket tens is obviously a shove. So I'm going a bit fast, but the most important thing to realize is how many bets everyone has. Like, everyone realizes that, right? Like, I have about 16 big blinds. Everyone has somewhere between 5 and 15 big blinds. Just, everyone's on the same order of magnitude, right? It's not like this is 80 big blinds or something. Just, yeah, so. Okay, so this guy goes on for about 15 big blinds and gets the blinds. So here I have, so we did this calculation a bunch of times. I have 4.5 to 1 odds to call with Jack 7 suited, right? I have to call 8,000 to win. Yeah, to win about 36,000. So I have 4.5 to 1 odds to call, but I still chose to fold. I just think I'm going to make a lot of poor decisions post flop. Like, you know, if I hit a pair, he could have a bigger pair. Like, if the flop comes Jack 6-2, I can lose to pocket queens in this situation. Like, he based him pretty early, so his hand's going to be good. His hand's going to be very good. And, you know, if I hit and if I don't hit anything, he can just bet into the pot. I would probably call here with like Jack 10 suited, but not Jack 9 suited. So I'd say Jack 10 suited is the worst hand I call here. This guy goes on because the blind's not much going. So here I'm definitely calling. I'm even jamming pocket 2s here. Like, because this guy only went on for 3.5 big blinds. So, like, your hand really doesn't need to be that good to get it all in here. Pocket 2s I'm going all in. Like, pretty much any ace even. Maybe not ace 2 offsuit, but ace 2 suited I'm definitely going all in. King 9 suited I'm definitely going all in. I'm basically gambling with a very big range here because this guy's going to be weak. And even if I'm slightly losing to him, there's all this dead money in the blinds. So I'm still going to be getting a good price. So he shows up with Jack 10, so I'm 70% unfortunately I lose though. So good. It's not good for that. So as you can see, this is a $109 buy-in tournament. The final couple of tables. So you know the play here is pretty high level. As you can see, every hand basically everyone folds or goes all in, right? I was trying to emphasize this very hard a few lectures ago. You absolutely cannot play around with your stack. So like all the hands that I'm fast forwarding through, if you notice, basically everyone folds. One person goes on, everyone folds. One person goes on, everyone folds, right? No one plays around with their stack. No one like calls or like raises small and folds. Like no one just plays around. It's in for a penny, in for a pound because you have so few chips. If you're going to gamble, you got to put in all your chips. Yeah.
Do you have a payout schedule for this?
No, I don't, but it's going to be approximately the same as the tournaments. Like the ratio, like the curve, the payout increase curve, is approximately the same as as what you're used to. Like it's nothing abnormal, you know. It'll be like, say like second, it'll be like, say first place is $10,000. Second place will be like 6.5. Third place will be like 4.5. Fourth place will be like 3.5. It'll be about what you expect. Yeah. So okay, so yeah. So as you can notice, even as I'm fast forwarding through quickly, you notice there's very few hands like this one that actually gets through a flop. It's very frequently just all pre-flop. So yeah, so this hand I think both players had to get it in. I think so. If you notice, basically it was a raise and a re-raise, and they're pretty much so. Touch my nuts is pretty much committed. So he got it in with pocket tens. I would even get it in with pocket eights in this situation. But I'd say I think I'd fold pocket sevens if I were him. So yeah, I'd get it in here if I was touch my nuts. I'd get it with pocket eights is better, ace queen better, maybe ace jack suited. Definitely not king queen suited. And he hits a 10, so that's so here I could kind of call, but I don't think it's good because if I call, the pot's going to be like 60,000, and this guy only has 45,000 left. So if I call, I basically have to make a decision whether to go all in on the flop every single time. And I don't think I can make a great decision. And also my odds are much worse in this case because he raised 30,000, right? I have to call 20,000 to only win 45,000. So I only have two. I only have 2 and a quarter. My odds are only 2.25 to 1 instead of 4.5 to 1. If he only raised to 2,000, I would definitely call here. But he raised to 30,000, so that needs to be full. Yeah, I think I'm never calling here. I'm either going all in or folding. There's not much point to have to call here, basically, because such a large percentage of his chips are already in pre-flop. And I'd probably go all in with like king jack suited or better. I'd probably fold king jack offsuit.
Should have at 56
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, he should have just gone all in, but I mean, he raised to a large enough size that basically didn't matter. Like if you go, the point of going all in is so that people can't call. But you know, if he's gonna raise to like 90% of his chips anyway, it's basically equivalent. I mean, he didn't raise it that big here, but he still raised it big enough that it's basically equivalent. Okay, so this hand pretty fast. So shove with king jack, definitely good. It's only 5 bets, so I definitely agree. And the call with ace 5 offsuit is definitely correct as well. Okay. So here I go on. I only have 7 big ones here. I'm actually very short here. I pick up a great hand on the button, and he calls me with ace 5 offsuit. So his call is definitely correct. I definitely don't think his call is incorrect. So he basically got kind of unlucky. Like he got unlucky that I had ace king. In this case, I'd say both players played correct again. So as you can see, players are getting it on pretty frequently. You just need to game roll in some cases. So Touch My Nuts has been playing lots of hands, but I think a lot of his hands has been correct. Like I think every single hand I don't think he's playing incorrectly. Like he just happened to have a good hand many times in a row, but he's been getting unlucky recently. Yeah, so this hand I think is also correct. Jack 9 off is a bit weak, but I think it's fine. I'd even go on with like 10-8 off, but I'd probably fold 9-7 off. And the call with pocket 9s is definitely fine. So I fold pocket 2s here. If you notice, pocket 2s isn't in the range of hands I suggest you raise anyway. And I think folding is definitely good because I definitely can't shove. It's way too risky to go all in here with pocket 2s. I think it's actually kind of close. Like I think with like pocket 5s, going all in is probably fine. And I don't think raising has much purpose because I'm just going to fold to a re-raise or I'm going to call and never have the best hand. So I just fold. And we actually see a flop, which is kind of weird. Yeah, so wow. So yeah, I mean, I don't really agree with Mad 66 call. I think in this spot he should just go all in or fold. But either way, I mean, on this spot, neither player is folding. So and touch my nuts against there. So this is usually called a block. When everyone folds a big blind to you, it's always nice. So here I'm definitely calling. I mean, this guy only shoved a bit more than 2 big blinds. Like, I'm even shoving here with Jack 10 offsuit. I'm even shoving here with like Jack 8 offsuit probably. So maybe not as bad as Jack 8 offsuit, but, and luckily I do win to 70-30. So I fold the button here, even though I can steal the blinds. The reason I didn't is because if you notice, Spacey FCB, he only has 3 big blinds, right? So I know that if I raise, he's gonna call. There's no way he's gonna fold. No, even if no matter what he has, he's gonna fold. So with only 7 high, I'm not doing that well, because even if he calls with 9-2 offsuit, I'm losing. So there's no point to steal the blinds here, because I know he's gonna call. And he has to call. So yeah, so this play I don't like in general because I would have just went all in if I was him. He only has like 11 big blinds, and by raising, he lets the other guy call with something like 10-8 suited and play a pot in position against him. So, I mean, maybe he just had pocket aces here and was trying to trap his opponent, but in general, I really disagree with this type of play. Yeah, because like even if you have ace-king, you're in a terrible situation when the other guy calls you in position with 10-8 suited. Because you're out of position, you know, and if you, even if the flop comes like 9-6-2, you bet he can call with a straight draw, and then if the turn is something random, you'll check, and he's going to probably bet, and you're going to just lose. You're just going to fold and lose the game a lot. So get ace is always nice. I just go all in here. I could have tried to trap him a bit, but usually, like I said, when you get I could have raised to something really small, but he knows that I'm going to go all in when I raise because I only have about 17 big blinds. So I talked about this last class. With any hand when I go on, I'm going to go all. With any hand if I raise, I'm going to go all in. So it's kind of obvious if I raise to a small amount with aces. So I feel like he would have picked up on that, so I just went all in. Against like a weaker player, I would have raised smaller and tried to trap him, but I think he would probably read my raise as a trap and play pretty well against it. So, and like, you know, when I say I think he's gonna put me on aces when I raise small, then you ask, why don't I do the same raise with any 2 cards? Why don't I do this with 7-3 suited? He's gonna put me on aces. The answer is, even if he puts me on aces, when I raise small, he's still gonna call with good odds and get it in post flop often enough that with 7-3 suited, it's still not good. So he folds, unfortunately. So I fold here. I think that's definitely fine. I would definitely get it in with like ace-7 offsuit. I would get it in with about ace-6 suited, ace-5 suited. Yeah, I would get it in with pocket 2s. I would get it in with king-10 suited. So I think his shove is a bit loose. Spacey FCB, I think his shove is a bit loose, but I'm definitely shoving king-9 offsuit and king-8 suited, but I think king-8 offsuit is just borderline. And touch my nuts calls and loses though. The reason I think his shove is a bit loose is because the same principle I explained. With a hand like king-8 offsuit, what's the important thing? The important thing is not to have that many players behind you, right? And he was in the worst position possible. He was under the gun. Like, even if he had something like 4-3 suited, it might be, it's in a sense better in the sense that, I mean, 4-3 suited is a lot weaker of a hand, but in a spot when you're shoving under the gun, having small suited cards is more important in general than having a hand like king-8 offsuit that has high card value, but is being crushed by good hands. Right, like when my opponent calls with ace-4 suited, I'd much rather have 7-5 suited rather than king-8 offsuit. Okay, so this hand sub-line goes all in. Everybody folds. This hand is pretty standard. I think both players play fine. And yeah, touch my nuts had a pretty bad round. So I just go all in here. So this is the second. So this is what I call a bubble situation. So there's 2 tables left at this point. So it's nearing the final table bubble. Right? So when I talked about ICM, I said, you really don't want to bust on a bubble. You don't want to bust when there's 10 players left and it's about to be the final table. So the point is, this is like a prisoner's dilemma situation. If I just put all my chips in, I know my opponents will fold very frequently. Whereas if I just raise, my opponent knows that when they re-raise me, I have to fold very often. So like by raising small, I just give my opponent the opportunity to basically jump on the street in front of me. Now, if I can't cross, I have to wait, I have to fold. So I, instead of letting my opponent do that, I just went all in myself. I mean, ace-10 offsuit is pretty good. It's almost good enough to raise and call re-raise, I think, but I didn't really want to risk getting in a big pot on the bubble when it's almost the final table, and I do get the blinds. So as you can see, Spacey FCB is doing the same thing. Even though the effective stack size is 20 big blinds, like he has like 25, but I have 20, he's still going all in because his logic is the same. He doesn't want to raise to 24,000 and let me go all in, and then he has to fold very frequently. So I fold. Here I'm calling. I mean, even though it's risky, there's ace-queen offsuit, way too good. I'm even calling ace-10 offsuit in this case, I think. Even like ace-9 offsuit. Ace-8 is a bit borderline since I know he's not going to risk that much on the bubble, but ace-queen offsuit definitely good enough. Unfortunately, I lose them. So yeah, as you can see, he had a good hand, and he's not risking this that much. But he's still going to shove ace-2 suited here. He's still going to shove king-9 suited. He might not shove as wide as like king-9 offsuit or like king-8 offsuit. He's still shoving pretty wide. But in general, in the bubble situation, you can tighten it a bit. So I go all in here, and I actually think this was a mistake. I actually think this is not a good play. I don't agree. I mean, it worked out. I won the hand, but so like the result was good, but I don't think my decision was good. I think 7-9 offsuit is just a bit too weak in this spot. I think like it's very borderline. Like with Jack-9 suited is definitely good enough, and 10-8 offsuit might be good enough. But anyways, yeah, I think I made a bad play, but I got a good result. This all is definitely fine. I mean, also with an ace, it's less likely my opponents have aces, so it's less likely I'll get called. Win the blinds, so that's nice, winning 2 blinds in a row. So as you can see, look how much I improved my stack by winning 2 blinds in a row. So at the end of this hand, I only had 1-1-1. I only had 11,000. And at the end of 2 more hands, I've increased my stack by like 50%. I still have 150,000 after posting the 14,000 big blind. So like winning the blinds is so cool. Like I increased my stack by 50%. I fold here. Same thing, I go all in again. When there's only 1 player left, just the chances are just so good that he's not going to have anything. So, queen 7 off. This is probably one of the worst hands I shoved though. Like I don't think I would shove queen 5 off, and I don't think I would shove like Jack 7 off, and Jack 7 off maybe, but.
Wait, this is bubble, right? This is still bubble?
Yeah, this is still a bubble.
What do you think the calling range of the other guy would be? Because he has a pretty big stack. He has.
I expect to be called by any ace. I expect to be called by king 7 off or better maybe, and like king 5 suited, king 6 suited or better. I expect to be called by pocket 2s. I expect to be called by queen jack, but not much else. But I think queen 7 is good enough against that range where this will be a positive expectation. Because that range that I said is only like 25% or even less, like 22% or something. So almost 80% of the time, I'm just going to win the blinds for free. Yeah. King 10 offsuit, definitely good enough to go all in. So I'm risking a bit more now because I have like 12 big blinds now, but still, it's definitely worth the risk. I would even do this with like Jack 10 offsuit, but maybe not 10-9 offsuit. Win the blinds again. So as you can see, I basically doubled up without ever having to win a hand, just by going all in and winning the blinds very frequently. So someone else goes all in, get a walk, that's always nice. Okay, so this hand is very close. I would definitely be calling here if it wasn't a bubble situation. I basically folded because of ICM. I definitely think calling here is positive chip EP. I think if I do the calculation for just chips, calling is positive, but on the bubble situation, I expect them to be pretty tight, and I think it's barely a fold. I'm definitely calling king jack offsuit, And I'm definitely calling like ace-9 suited and probably even ace-8 suited. But yeah, and even calling like ace-8 offsuit probably. But king-10 suited, I think there's going to be a lot of aces in his range because he wants to have aces when he shoves, because when he has aces, other people are less likely to have aces to call him. So I think folding, it's very close. I definitely don't think shoving can be faulted. I think calling his all-in is okay, but I chose to be conservative. Yeah, definitely an extremely borderline game. But if it wasn't a bubble situation, it's easily a bottom. Yeah, and also I've been watching this player, and he's been fairly tight. Like if you've been watching me play through all the hands, he hasn't done that much. He just folded a lot. So king jack suited, just go all in. Once again, I'm not going to raise small in a bubble. I'm just gonna go all in so that my opponents can't put pressure on me. I need a very good hand to raise small and hope that my opponents put pressure on me. Like I guess like ace jack, but anything worse than ace jack, I would be reluctant to. Ace-10 safe and go all in. So I mean, I've been lucky getting lots of cards, but as you can see, I started all this with like about 100,000 chips, right? And now I have 247,000 chips without ever having to win an all-in or anything. I've just been going all in a lot, winning the blinds. I mean, it doesn't always work this beautifully. Like I was getting lucky that I was getting good enough cards and my opponents were never getting great hands good enough to call me. So I mean, yeah, I'm not saying this is like all skill, but I'm saying in general, you have to do this. You have to do this very soon again. So this hand is very standard. Both players have monster hands. Queen jack suited gets there. So, hold on. Wow, okay, sorry. I think I might have made something stupid. This is actually the final table. I'm sorry, okay. Yeah, this is actually the final table. But no, but everything is still applies. So like, because the entire final table is basically a bubble. Like, no, because I was noticing why is there 3 players? Okay, sorry, so that was kind of dumb. But yeah, no, but the entire final table is basically a bubble, right? Because there's escalating payouts for every single player. So sorry, okay, so I guess we're not that far from being there. So where were we? So we went all in here, and then this hand. So this is definitely good for us that Queen jack suited got there because it reduces the number of players, right? And it increases our payoff. Okay, so I fold here. Okay, so yeah, sorry about this, but I mean everything is still the same because the difference, because it's a bubble either way, so your play is exactly the same. Okay, so I just fold the button. So I think this hand is too bad to risk going all in, and if I just raise small, once again my opponent's gonna put a lot of pressure, pressure on me, so I just fold. So this guy raises and gets a fold. He goes all in, I fold. So as you can see, there's just a lot of going all in because basically you have to. So here I go all in because it's the same principle. So my opponent gave me a chance to put pressure on him, right? I know he can't call that much, so I'm just going to go all in. And he folds. If my opponent had went all in this situation, like say, instead of raising to 24,000, he went all in, I would have probably folded. Because even though my hand is pretty good, I just can't, it's not good enough to risk it in this situation when I'm trying to move up the payouts. So by not going all in, he ended up losing the top. But I mean, that's fine. So he just calls here, which is kind of weird. But I think there's some chances he could be trapping, so I'm not going to do anything. And he checks. So he checks, and I bet here. So this is the same principle of when you have a really bad hand, you need to bet to try to win the pot right there, right? Because I'm not going to win the pot by winning the pot on the river. And also, remember the other thing I said about bluffing? Bluffing is good when you're representing something. I mean, on this board, I can represent, on this board with 2 deuces, who's more likely to have a deuce? Me or him who called preflop? Like, he's going to have a pretty strong hand, right? So the chances that he has a deuce is pretty low. But the chances that I have a deuce is relatively high because he knows that I have a bad hand. If I had a hand that was good at all, I would have raised preflop. So I for sure had a bad hand preflop because I didn't raise at all. So it's more likely that I have a deuce than him. So I'm definitely representing something. He definitely has to be slightly scared that I have a deuce, or even an 8, which is a pretty small card. So he just goes all in, which I think is very weird. It's just too big. Like, you know, if he has a good hand, like if he was trapping me with aces, he should at least raise smaller. I have no idea what the purpose of this was, but I guess it got me involved. So yeah, so he raises here. I just go on with jacks. This is kind of obvious. He folds again. So as you can see, this whole time, there's been very few actual all-ins where both players call, right? Every hand is basically one person goes on, other people fold. One person goes on, every people fold. There's actually very few hands where there's an all-in and a call. And this is what all high-level tournaments looks like. There's not a lot of like screwing around where you just randomly go all in. Like it's just all in and then everyone folds. So this is how high-level tournaments are built. This is what the dynamics are, because everything else is like has a way to be. Every other strategy is not as good as this one, basically. So here are folding hands instead of trying to steal. And definitely my hand isn't good enough to go all in. Like, we still have a lot of bets. So, and he just goes all in, he folds. So here, my hand is a lot better. So when he calls, I just go all in. Usually when he calls in this situation, I think he might be trying to trap, but since he already did it once before this, I didn't have that much respect for his hand, so I just went on to try to win the hand right here, right now. Yeah, there's no point in checking even though I have a decent hand, because like, you know, even if he has complete garbage, I'm better off winning the pot right here with ace-9 instead of trying to win the pot post-flop and giving him a chance to get a pair on the flop or something, so. Just go all in here. He raises here, I fold. He gets the lines. So I do try to make a steal here, and it doesn't work. So yeah, so usually I try to make a steal because the last 2 times I had the button, I didn't steal, right? Like here and here, and I guess here. Like the last couple of times on the button, I've always had very bad hands and I never stole. So I thought maybe my opponents would start to catch on by now that I never steal. That was sort of my logic. So I thought this would be okay to make a steal, but I guess he had a good hand. Nothing much going here. Yeah, I fold. I mean, I could, again, put pressure on him and go all in, and it would be an all-right play, but 3-5 suited is just a bit weak, I'd say, and I've already done it a few times, so he might be suspicious, so I just fold. So I guess it would have worked because the other guy did it. So yeah, ace-7 suited, I just go all in. So I need a very good hand before I'm at a point where I'm raising small and hoping that the other guy goes on so that I can call. Like I basically need like ace-10 suited or better, I'd say. So even a hand like as good as ace-7 suited, I'm just gonna go all in. I'd rather win the blinds for free rather than try to get my opponent to go all in for the worst game. Get the blinds. He goes on here, and calling is definitely positive chip expectation, but it's definitely minus money expectation because of ICM, right? So this is where ICM comes into play. I think calling is definitely correct in terms of how much equity I need. Queen 10 suited is very good. Like he's going on with a very high percentage. I would say more than 50% for sure. And Queen 10 suited against the top 50% of hands is definitely well enough to call. But it's just risky in terms of, you know, even if he turned up his hand and showed me that he had like Jack 9 suited, I wouldn't be certain that it would be a correct play for me to call, just because of the risk factor. So yeah. So as you can see, the risk factor in tournaments is basically you still have to go all in a lot because your opponents will fold a lot. So even though you don't want to be risky, at the same time, if you're the first person to go all in, you actually can be very risky because your opponents will fold more. So that's sort of like, it's like sort of like the crossing the street principle. If you're the first person to step in the intersection, even if you're being stupid, the other guys can't run you over. It's basically that principle. So I just fold 7-4 offsuit here. So even with ace jack suited here, I went all in. I think the reason was sort of because I thought if I raised small, my opponents would, because every other time I've done this, I went all in, right? I've never raised small, except for once with queen three offsuit. But I think it's kind of suspicious if I raise small. So I went all in. I think I've had slightly more chips. So I only had 220,000. If I had like 250,000, I think I'd raise smaller. Like I'd only raise to like 34,000 and call and all in. But since I only have like 14 big blinds anyway, or even less, the math is kind of hard. But 13 or 14 big blinds, going all in I think is fine, even though the hand is really good. Get the blinds. But yeah, I think this hand could have gone either way. I think there's two good plays. One is go all in, two is raise to min raise to 34,000 and call it all in. And if I raise small and both of them go all in, then I can fold. That's another advantage of raising small. Here I fold. Yeah, I think folding is definitely correct. This hand is pretty bad even with really good odds. I would call like queen 7 suited, I would call. I would call like king 5 suited. Yeah, I basically wouldn't call that much once again because, you know, by calling, I give myself a risk of losing the turn. But still, like, with such good odds, I'm never folding king 5 suited, queen 7 suited, ace 2 offsuit. Although with ace 2 offsuit, I'd probably more likely to go all in preflop to try to get him to fold rather than call, since ace 2 offsuit doesn't play that well post flop, whereas queen 7 suited plays a lot better post flop. I fold though.
Whoa.
Get a nice hand. So here I raise small because pocket queens is just so good. I don't care if he's going to call in position with 10-8 suited. That's in my favor because when the flop comes 8-5-2, he's going to put all his money in and he's going to be behind. So like with ace king here, this is a lot worse because my opponent will call with hands like 10-8 suited and it would be bad for me. But with a hand as good as pocket queens, I just do so well against all his random stuff that I definitely don't want to be going all in. So if you remember earlier on, I said ace-king is about somewhere between pocket tens and pocket jacks. But in this situation where my opponent's range can include such bad hands, ace-king actually is very bad. Like even like pocket nines is better than ace-king because pocket nines beats on random stuff like 8-6 suited that he could call a small raise with, whereas ace-king doesn't beat it as well. So anyways, I raise it, he doesn't play. So I try to steal again here with queen 3 offsuit. I guess I like that hand for some reason. It works this time. Here, once again, I fold. Like I said, I need about queen 7 suited or better to defend here. Even though 5-3 suited is in a way better than queen 7 suited because it's connected, the stacks are deep. The stacks are shallow enough where I'm more interested in hitting a good pair with queen 7 suited than hitting a straight draw with 5-3 suited. So in this situation, it isn't. Just go all in. With pocket queens, I'm raising small, but not with ace 2 offsuit. So a bunch of walks, goes all in, folds. So I try to steal here, and he calls. He bets. So with the straight draw here, I could raise, but I think by raising, he's going to just put me on something like ace 10, ace jack a lot, because like any ace has an out to hit a 3 to hit a straight, right? So if I raise, it gives him a chance to go on with his like 6-5 suited or whatever, and then I have to fold with a decent draw. So I just call, and you know, I definitely have the odds to call, right? Because if I hit an ace or a 6, I have a very good hand, and that's definitely enough odds, plus the implied odds. But so as you can see, I do get very lucky, but I bet and he folds, so it didn't work out that well, but that's okay. So I guess he played very skillful. Go on with ace 10 suited. He folds. So this is kind of nice. Very obvious play for both players, and I guess he just got kind of unlucky. So now, okay, now it's heads up. So now there's 2 players. Now there's no more bubble factor, right? So I said this before. When it's 2 players, there's no more bubble factor. So we're just playing heads up now. And basically, you can be very risky when there's 2 players because chip money equals money EV. You only need to try to maximize chip EV, so you can play very risky. And I raise. So something I've never said in this class that you should know is when it's heads up, the small blind has position post flop, right? Normally, if you raise from the small blind and the big blind calls, you're out of position post flop. But when it's only 2 players left, if he calls, he has to act first on the flop, right? Because the small blind has the dealer button. So this is sort of like a corner case of poker that's good to keep in mind. So you can raise a lot because I'm in position when I raise from the small one. But he goes on and I fold. And he goes on and I'm sorry. Oh, he just I raise again, try again, he folds. He goes all in. This is very close to a call, but I think because I know now my opponent is going to be risking a lot more because he knows that there's no more bubble factor. So this is actually somewhat close to a call. But I fold because I don't think my opponent was that crazy. I'm definitely calling like ace-2 offsuit. I'm definitely calling like king-7 suited, I think. So, yeah, so this is very close.
Well, is king 7 suited and king 6 suited that different?
It's different enough, I'd say. I mean, yeah, it's not much different. Like, I think calling here wouldn't be a big mistake. Like, it's, you know, all these borderline hands, it's not a big mistake to go either way. And I thought my opponent was more conservative than risky, but still, you know, he's going to be going along with a very wide range of hands. Like, I still expect him to do this with like 40% of hands or something. So, fold that. My opponent goes all in. It's more than 20 big blinds now, but I'm still calling with pocket sevens. Unfortunately, I get pretty unlucky. That's okay. Go on with jacks. He doesn't play again on that 30 hand, which sucks. Go on with king 3 off. That's definitely fine. You know, it's only it's only 12 big blinds. I would even go on with like queen 2 suited. Like I would go on with king 2 off. I would go on with queen 2 suited. I would go on with like queen 7 off. He folds. He raises, I go on with a suited ace. Okay. Okay. I call. I get really lucky on the call. Yeah, so fast because my okay. Okay, I go all in here because I don't want to let him see a flop. He folds. He calls, he raises, I call, and I get a good flop. I raise small to try to get him to put it all in, but he folds. So, okay, now, I just go all in, he folds. So it's basically just a lot of folding. So overall, as you can see, his stack is dwindling sort of. Like he has 27,000, and I think overall I'm going all in more than him. So, I mean, I haven't been getting better cards, but as you can see, his stack is slowly basically withering down. This is a very loose shove, but I figured he was pretty tight and he wasn't calling that much, so I did it. So, as you can see, his stack is basically dwindling down because he's not going all in that much. I mean, he could have just not had good cards, but like he keeps walking me, and so, I mean, I happen to be getting good cards pretty frequently, so that's always nice. So, yeah. So as you can see, there hasn't been a single all-in, but his stack is half as much as what it used to be after a bunch of hands. So this is why it's very important to continuously go all-in, because if you don't, your stack will just dwindle for no reason. So he folds here with an ace, which sucks. But the last time I raise, he calls with king 8 off, and okay, cool. Yeah, thanks guys. Yeah, sorry for all the mistakes early on in the lecture. And next class I'm going to go back to post-flop play, and next week Mike McDonald is going to come and give a guest lecture. I'm going to announce prizes very, very soon. I got a couple more prizes for you guys, which is pretty nice. I got more books, so there's going to be a good amount of prizes, and I'm going to announce the exact structure very soon.